Crimea, Ukraine, June 5, 1942, 5:37 a.m. The ground moves. Not like an earthquake, deeper than that. A vibration that travels up through the soles of your boots, through your legs, into your chest, before your brain even has time to process what's happening. Inside the Soviet bunkers of Sevastopol, men jolt awake. The concrete walls, 1 meter thick, built to withstand anything, shudder like paper in the wind. Oil lamps crash to the floor. Someone screams in Russian. No one answers. Then comes the sound. A roar so low, so absolute, that it isn't heard, it is felt. In the sternum, in the jaw, behind the eyes. A sound no one in this war has ever heard before. A sound most of these men will never hear again. 48 kilometers away, hidden inside a narrow valley carved into the Crimean hills, something has just woken up. You can almost smell it from here, burnt cordite sharp in the cold morning air, the heat radiating off superheated steel, the faint trembling of the earth still settling after the blast. Its name is Gustav, and it has just fired the largest artillery shell in the history of human warfare. It starts in 1936. Adolf Hitler sits across from the directors of Krupp, Germany's industrial steel titan, in his mountain residence at Berchtesgaden. He asks them a single question, almost casually. Can you build a gun powerful enough to destroy the French Maginot Line? The engineers exchange glances. The Maginot Line is considered impregnable, 7 meters of reinforced concrete, armored gun turrets sunk deep into the rock, tunnels stretching for hundreds of kilometers beneath the French countryside. Nothing in existence can break it. Chief Engineer Erich Muller leans forward. Yes, but you'll have to let us build something the world has never seen. That afternoon, on paper napkins and engineering pads, the monster is born. The specs are staggering. An 800mm caliber, nearly a full meter of bore diameter. A barrel 32 meters long. A total weight of 1,350 metric tons. For context, the feared Tiger tank weighed 57 tons. Gustav weighed the equivalent of 23 Tiger tanks. It would take 5 years, hundreds of engineers, and the steel output of multiple factories to complete. And by the time it was ready, the Maginot Line had already been bypassed. France had already fallen. Gustav had never fired a single round at its original target. But Hitler had already found a new use for his monster. Getting Gustav to Crimea is a logistical nightmare unlike anything the Wehrmacht has ever attempted. The gun cannot travel on roads. It cannot be loaded onto trucks or towed by any vehicle in existence. It lives on specially reinforced railway tracks, double-gauge steel rails capable of bearing a weight that standard tracks would simply buckle under. Before Gustav can move, entire regiments of military engineers must advance ahead of it, laying and reinforcing track across hundreds of kilometers of occupied territory. The gun is then disassembled into its major components. The barrel alone spans multiple flat cars. The full convoy stretches for several kilometers of train. At the valley outside Sevastopol, reassembly begins. 3 weeks, 2,500 men, massive cranes, rotating shifts through the night. A full infantry battalion dedicated solely to perimeter security. Anti-aircraft batteries deployed in concentric rings to shield the operation from Soviet air raids. Picture the scene. Thousands of men moving in near silence around an object so immense it dwarfs every crane, every vehicle, every structure nearby. Officers speak in low voices, like they're afraid of waking it. General Erich von Manstein, commanding the German 11th Army, comes in person to inspect the assembly. He stares at the 32-meter barrel pointing toward the sky and writes in his diary, "This is the work of mad engineers. But perhaps this war deserves them." June 5, 1942, 5:35 a.m. No one stands within 500 meters when Gustav fires. The concussive blast alone can rupture eardrums, collapse lungs, kill a man without leaving a mark. The 2,500-man crew operates at a distance, connected by field telephone and hand signals. The shell is loaded by crane. It weighs 7.1 metric tons, heavier than most armored cars. It takes several minutes to guide it into the breach with mechanical precision. The propellant cartridges follow, massive powder charges stacked with surgical care. Then silence. An officer raises his hand. Men step back. Radio communications are cut. The electromagnetic pulse from the detonation would knock out every receiver within kilometers. The hand drops. Boom. The shockwave tears through the hills like amplified thunder. Birds scatter for miles. The valley walls crack. Dust falls from rock faces that haven't moved in centuries. The shell travels 48 kilometers in under 60 seconds, moving at 820 meters per second. It punches through the earth above the Soviet ammunition depot at Fort Stalin, a bunker buried 30 meters underground, beneath reinforced concrete and solid rock. A structure Soviet engineers had declared indestructible. The explosion is visible from the Black Sea. Gustav fires 48 shells on Sevastopol over the following weeks. Every round that connects destroys what it hits. Underground fortifications, ammunition stores, command positions that nothing else could reach. But even as the reports come in, a quiet unease begins to settle among the German high command. 48 shells in several weeks. A single Stuka dive bomber can drop dozens of bombs in one sortie. A standard artillery battery can unleash hundreds of rounds in an afternoon. Gustav, by contrast, requires 45 minutes of preparation between each shot. The barrel overheats. It must be cooled, swabbed, and fully reloaded from scratch. After roughly 100 rounds, the entire barrel must be replaced, and it can only aim in one direction, straight ahead. Traversing the gun, even slightly, means physically relocating the rail tracks, an operation measured in hours, not minutes. You can almost feel the weight of that realization settling over the officers watching from the ridge. In their hands, the most powerful weapon ever built, and in so many practical ways, nearly useless. The cost of manufacturing Gustav could have funded hundreds of tanks, thousands of light artillery pieces, millions of standard shells that could have changed the war on a dozen fronts. But sometimes, war is not about logic. It is about ego, about the need to show the enemy and the world that there is no limit to what you are willing to build, to destroy, to sacrifice. Sevastopol falls in July 1942, before Gustav exhausts its ammunition supply. Plans are made to redeploy it. Leningrad, El Alamein, France. Every time, the logistics of moving a 1,350-ton weapon across contested terrain in military timeframes make it impossible. It ends up in Poland, where it fires a handful of rounds into Warsaw during the brutal suppression of the 1944 uprising. Then Germany starts to lose. By April 1945, with Allied armies closing in from both directions, German engineers receive the order they've been dreading for months: destroy Gustav. A weapon of this magnitude cannot fall into Soviet or American hands. Demolition teams lay the charges. The 32-meter barrel, 5 years in the forging, is gone in minutes. The American soldiers who stumble upon the wreckage in a Bavarian forest stand in silence. Steel fragments dozens of centimeters thick, mechanical components larger than automobiles, a breech mechanism alone weighing several tons. Colonel Justice Russell files his report. We discovered the remains of a gun of inconceivable size. I have never seen anything so large or so pointless. Gustav died before the war ended, but what it represents never did. It stands as one of the clearest monuments to a truth that war keeps teaching, and that armies keep refusing to learn. Size is not the same as power. Spectacle is not the same as victory. The wars that matter are won by logistics, by adaptability, by the soldier with a rifle who can move when a 1,350-ton machine cannot. Gustav could level an underground fortress from 48 kilometers away. It could not hold a single kilometer of ground. Somewhere in a Bavarian forest, beneath decades of moss and fallen leaves, there are still fragments of gray steel slowly returning to the earth. Pieces of the monster that Hitler built. Pieces of the delusion that no weapon, no matter how immense, can substitute for strategy, for reality, for the fundamental truth that wars are fought by human beings, not by machines built to impress them. Gustav is silent now. It always was.